First of all, you've got to like and respect their work. You've got to know what they've done and seen some of the buildings. Ideally, I think that would be by far the best recommendation, that you've seen something, you said, well, that looks good to me, it really works, it's kind of sensible, I can understand it, and that's the sort of firm I'd like to work for. I mean, in practical terms, it'd be quite good to work for a firm with work abroad, because they've probably got a better chance of survival. and also interesting to work for a firm that has a good mix of projects on. But it's very much a sort of atmospheric thing. I think you've got to feel comfortable in the place. I think it doesn't happen quite so much now, but there were firms which did almost solely offices or solely housing. And I think it's quite a difficult situation to be in, that, because you feel much more as though you're in a kind of production line. You've got to go in there, turn your screen on, and you've got half the drawings already done, and you just carry on working on them. I think you want, ideally as a young architect, you want your brain to be challenged. And I don't think it matters what size the firm is, and you could almost argue the smaller the better, I'd say, because it's more challenging. In a large firm, you learn how a job is structured. If you work in a team of 30 or 40 people, you can see how it's broken down, and how from the mega structure of the whole building it comes down to details, and you have different teams working on different aspects of the project. And I think it's very important to know how all that interlocks. It's like, in a sense, building the architectural team is a bit like building the building. You have to piece it together and have the right people in the right places with the right experience. And I think that's a very valuable thing to learn, because you might well find yourself in that situation on different projects in the future, but you might also find yourself trying to organise things like that, and it's not easy. You've got to learn, in a way, as an architect, to be sort of part manager, part lawyer, part accountant, part PR man, etc., etc. And all those things you can pick up in a sort of medium-sized firm. I mean, I suppose you could say GB or UK, depending on what definition you like to have, has always been a sort of trading nation. They've always been very outgoing. We can't contain everything we want to do within ourselves. We've built railways and bridges and railway stations and things all over the world. You exported our expertise and done a lot of good work, actually. My great-grandfather built dams on the Nile, and it was very successful out there on irrigation projects. So it's a tradition going right back into the 19th century and possibly even earlier. And I think that has carried on, actually. There's a lot of work. I mean, at my own practice, for instance, 50% of our work is abroad. And that's not that unusual for many of the practices. I mean, we've deliberately set out to do that, because if you relied on government policy in this country to provide you with a steady flow of work, you'd be absolutely nowhere. So it's been very good to have work abroad. And we've also deliberately set out to have a huge range, a mixture of work, from university buildings to art museums to railway stations to industry to housing. So if any one sector got sort of really down, we've been able to keep going. But I think it's quite, there is a, I mean, for a young person in this country today, if you can get into an enterprising firm, you've got a very good chance of building up with the firm and doing very well.